Hey there, and welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. Lily and I saw Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse at Becky's recommendation, and we loved it so much that we instantly had to call her to talk about it. And once we were doing that, we said, hey, let's record an episode on the spot. So this is a very short but fun episode where we captured the magic. Now, in capturing the magic, we did this on cell phone, so the audio quality is not perfect, but I think you will still enjoy hearing our reactions. Now, these reactions are not only spoiler-filled, but the spoilers are non-linear. So do yourself a favor, because it's a fantastic movie. We loved it. Go out and see Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse, then come back and download this episode. Our normal weekly episode will drop on Friday, but enjoy this bonus in the meantime. Thanks, as always, for listening. Here we are at the second ever immediate reaction Friday Night Movie Podcast episode. The only other time it was done was for The Last Jedi. But Lily and
exactly 1 year ago.
But I would like to say both of these movies I saw on my birthday. So there's some sort of magical thing about my birthday and really important podcasts.
Well, your birthday's just like right near Christmas where big movies come out.
Whatever. Everybody knows there were no new movies coming out this week, okay?
I will give you that back. That is something cosmic and interesting. And I think in some ways, I know Last Jedi has been like an axe I've been grinding for a year, but this movie definitely has some interesting parallels that one could draw with it. So anyways, here we are. Lily and I just walked out of the movie.
So this is like a rental car Hertz commercial for you. You're like, oh my God. But he got the car he wanted in the end, unlike me getting the ending I wanted in Last Jedi or whatever. Like, you always find a way to go back to Last Jedi.
So Becky, first of all, I mean, I had wanted to see this for a while.
No, you don't have to give me an I told you so. I feel like I just happened to see it first, but we were all going to have to see this movie.
I'm giving it to Trevor because you're like incredible animation friend Trevor saw it and you said he liked it, and honestly, like your opinion for cartoons is not valuable to me. But you were like, you have to see this movie, and I was like, and then you were like, Trevor thought it was amazing, and I was like, done. Shai, we gotta go see it.
But even for myself, I was like, really, Vlad? We're gonna go see a cartoon on my birthday? I guess so. And then Trevor was like, no, trust me, you need to see it.
Okay, so, am I crazy, or is this movie's not a cartoon, right?
It's not a cartoon.
I don't think it falls into that category
also,
because there's so much CGI in the real ones that it's like basically not live action. So to me, this isn't a cartoon. I forgot it was animated.
But did you guys have the feeling like while I was watching it, I was already sad that it was going to be over?
Yes.
And then I was anxious because I was like, this is the only time I'll experience it for the first time, and then it will be over. And I had the same feeling while watching the movie.
I had the same feeling.
I genuinely miss Spider-Gwen and Hobo Spider-Man. Like, I'm sad that, I know they had to go back to their Earth, but I was super sad. Okay.
When he sends, spoilers all around.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Hold on. We're going to ruin the movie. Do not listen to this episode unless you've seen the movie.
Yeah, this is for people who really liked it and who are also going to enjoy Lily trying to understand what happened to him.
But when he sends Hobo Spider-Man back to his universe, because they're Spider-Verses.
Short for
that's what the movie's called. When they send him back, I was like, oh no, this means the movie's over soon.
Okay, so just to recap people what this movie's about, this movie focuses on Miles Morales, who is from the Marvel's Ultimate Universe. He's an existing character that when Marvel did this really interesting reboot in the early 2000s called the Ultimate Universe, they revamped Spider-Man as this awesome character, Miles Morales. And what this movie does is it brought together him in the context of Peter Parker and another Peter Parker, and then some other really cool variations of Spider-Man in a plot to save the universe that the movie itself is very conscious, is the same as any other Spider-Man type of movie, which it does a really good job doing. But then but then they do it in such a way that the animation
you said it was unlike anything you'd ever seen, and you said your friends who are animators said it was unlike anything they've ever seen. It's unlike anyone's ever seen.
I can't comprehend how they did it, because they're not doing your typical CGI animation. They're making it more flat, almost like a 2D film. Vlad explained to me that they're animating on what's called 2s, not 1s for most of the film, which means that, each second of a movie has 24 frames, and instead of there being 24 individual images, there's 12 images. So they only animate one frame they could use twice.
So
and that kind of
you're telling me they had to do half the amount of work and it looks way better? I don't understand.
No, it doesn't end up necessarily being half the amount of work.
At times it looked like stop motion.
Yeah, that's how it gives you that pop. And then just the fact of how they're mixing like forms, where it's like they're using the comic book stuff, and then at times it almost looks like there's a double vision, and then at times it's super sharp, and it's all mixed in there.
Becky, Lily almost sent me out at the beginning of the movie. She's like,
This is 3D.
This is 3D. Go get the glasses.
I was like, Shai, we're in the wrong one. We're in the wrong one. You gotta go. We gotta get the glasses. He's like, no, I think this is it. And I was like, no. I'm pretty sure. Look at the screen. It looks 3D, and we don't have glasses. And he's like, no, just wait.
I don't think I could handle seeing this movie in 3D.
And Mike Roberts, shout out to Mike Roberts,
see it in 3D.
who warned people, like he warned Twitterverse. That's the verse of Twitter as opposed to Spiderverse. He everything's a verse now for me. He warned everybody not to see it in 3D. And thank you to him, because it was just so spectacular normal. And I thought at some point as I turned to Shai, and I was like, it's like a Tarantino film.
It's pretty.
You know what I mean?
Incredible.
Like the style was even Tarantino-esque.
But hold on. If we just table style for a moment, how good was the story? That was a great story.
The story was super. As a comic book fan, I generally knew where they were going with this, because believe it or not, there is a animated version of the Spider-Man that my kids loved called The Ultimate Spider-Man, and it was done on the Disney Network on Disney XD, and it was much more lodged in the Marvel universe. Becky's driving, which is why we hear the clicking, people.
God,
but sometimes we got to do it for the pod. And so the Spider-Verse has been explored in a lot of, and at least the area that I remember seeing it most recently was watching this really fun, more kids-oriented version of the Spider-Man story where they go into the Spider-Verse. And so my kids really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And so I generally knew going into this what we were going to be experiencing with different versions of Spider-Man. And that didn't affect me at all, because whereas the story was, as the hobo Spider-Man says, kind of your typical Spider-Man story, the characters to me were actually what really sank and what made it all, like, I cared about every single person in this movie.
Right, that's what it was. The characters were so good, and there's like that moment in the film are we just doing full spoilers?
Yes.
We're full spoilers.
Well, the moment in the film when they're all standing around with Miles, and they're like, and he's like, no one understands what I'm going through, and they're like, no, we like literally are the only people in the universe that understand what you're going through. And it was just like a really beautiful, genuine moment where you felt the bond between all of them, and you felt like the connection and like really,
And I'll say that each character not only had to tie back to style, not only had its visual style in which they moved and in which the art almost followed each of them onto the screen. So when Spider-Ham is on the screen or Spider-Man Noir is on the screen.
Spider-Ham. John Mulaney as Spider-Ham is amazing.
But they also they were drawn as such neat characters. Even the ones that were there for more comedic effect still had.
I mean, honestly, this is Nick Cage's best role in decades.
Decades.
His cameo in this movie has, he's erased all the schlock he's done in the last 20 years for me.
It was truly terrific. And Spider-Ham, I don't even remember how old Spider-Ham is, because I remember seeing comics of Spider-Man when I collected comics when I was a teenager. So Spider-Ham is a really old character. And they made him funny and not overdone.
No, just a little bit, just like a little hit. Just the right amount.
The other thing that I'm always a sucker for, and why I often like sequels, is I really love a good hero team once they've already bonded. And I just loved at the point where they were all teaming up
I
was
also,
just so much fun.
And I also have to say that, like, okay, we love Deadpool and it's great and it's fine and it's so meta, and even its meta is meta, and like it makes like people like who haven't gone to film school or art school use the word meta, even though I'm pretty sure unless you've gone to either one of those schools, you don't know what it means, but you get it. This movie did not. It was meta enough without making me have to come out of it going, it was so meta.
Well, I also feel like it used the Deadpool charm without just like beating you with it.
Exactly, beating over the head.
It was like a little bit of Deadpool charm, you know.
Without overdoing it when, you know, they're clearly making fun of themselves, which is great.
So another thing they did is they broke the fourth wall. They did some edgy things, but they didn't make anything dark for dark's sake. They allowed you to unironically enjoy all of it. And
look, at this point, if I go to see a superhero movie and not everyone dies, I think it's a light fare. Because after fucking Infinity War, and I remember finishing Infinity War with Mom, and she was like, my God, what is wrong with the world that children today can't go see a superhero movie and not everybody dies? So, yeah, it was nice to just be able to enjoy it and, like, know that these characters are going to see each other again, you know, probably. And if you haven't seen the movie and don't care about spoilers and you listen to this, stay for the epilogue.
So the
and now let's try to explain it to you.
I can't believe I didn't think there would be an epilogue. I don't go to the movies enough.
So afterwards, as the movie's ending,
I kept being like, oh, wow, Shai, you're watching the credits. That's so supportive of the filmmakers. And then I realized, like, oh, he's probably staying for an epilogue. I'm a dummy.
I just assumed there would be one because it's a comic book movie, and it's a thing with comic book movies. But also, here I am sitting in this theater. There were a few people, and I'm, of course, dying with all of the amount of like comic book nerd knowledge that I've absorbed in my life. And I'm sitting with Lily, who of all people actually wants to hear it. So, but you can't ruin the movie for other people, so I'm staying quiet. And right as the credits are rolling, Lily turns to me and says, "So, are there any other Spider-Man?" And I'm like, "Well, there's actually Spider-Man 2099. He was a futuristic Spider-Man that came out 29, whatever the number is. But he came out when I was a teenager, and he has I was starting to say he's a black costume with a red thing on the front, or a blue costume, whatever color that is supposed to be." And when I was like getting ready to say it all, and then the after credits scene introduces the futuristic Spider-Man, and he time travels back to the original cartoon, the 1967 cartoon, and he appears in the old-fashioned animation and has like an argument with the original Spider-Man as he was drawn in 1967.
And they're just like pointing, like they're arguing with each other, that they're pointing at each other. And that's the screenshot I sent to you back.
That's really funny.
But so if anyone's curious, if they do a sequel, there are other Spider-Mans. I think there's also a Spider-Man where, in fact, Mary Jane herself is Spider-Man. So there's a lot of opportunities.
So this is a futuristic Spider-Man.
That Spider-Man is a futuristic Spider-Man.
Who can go back in time?
I don't know if he can go back in time. Honestly, like, it came out in the 90s, and when they were just adding, like, gold foil covers, and there were 5 different titles of Spider-Man at the same time, and I got a little bit, like, bored of Spider-Man at that. Not core Spider-Man, but extra Spider-Man stuff, so I stopped. So I stopped reading it. So I still have the comic, though. In my stack of comics, we have Spider-Man 299 or whatever that's called, 2099. So we can go look for it back at the house.
Also, one more thing I want to talk about, story that was really important to enjoying it. Sorry, just to pull us back into the Spider-Verse of the movie again, is the bad guys, like the villain's motivation was believable. It was simple. And it was,
that's a good point.
And it was actually,
he wasn't trying to take over the world.
Right, he wasn't taking over the world. It's not about money. It's not about power. It was really just like a very personal human motivation, which to me like made everything work. So, it like really held it
kind
together.
Of like Cable's motivation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or
Deadpool.
Or actually, one could argue one of the best Spider-Man movies is the one with Doc Ock, Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And again, that Doc Ock, it's kind of a love story. He's upset about his wife dying. He's getting revenge. It's not as simple as, it's not just, I want to take over the world.
If the bad guy's not going to be Michael Keaton, who I'm loving the Keaton Renaissance, then...
Oh, the one that was in Homecoming.
Right. Then I need more of a better story.
The one with Michael Keaton was an interesting motivation.
Sure, Michael Keaton can do anything. I don't care what he does.
So
I love it.
So on that note of the villain, just to speak a little bit, the villain is Kingpin, who is a Spider-Man villain. He's also a Daredevil villain. He's a real New York Marvel Universe villain, and he's played by Vincent D'Onofrio in Marvel's Daredevil Netflix series, and it's well documented that I just never got into that show. And I have a friend, Nate. I hope Nate's listening.
Well documented. Where?
That I don't
Which
like
articles?
No, not articles.
Who's
Just
done
like
coverage on this.
Well played. So, my friend Nate told me before we watched this show.
This movie?
Or maybe it was Ariel. Nate or
show,
Ariel.
Daredevil
they were
show.
like, I won't watch Daredevil. I really don't like Vincent D'Onofrio. And I'm like, no, he's a great actor. And his portrayal of Kingpin, which again, I feel kind of bad saying this, but I could not stand it. It was so oppressive that I stopped liking Vincent D'Onofrio because of it. And so for me also to have Liev Schreiber play this version of Kingpin, who is similar in a lot of ways, the whole Vanessa plot with him losing his girlfriend that he was in love with is in the Daredevil TV show, and it was done better in the 30 seconds that they show her in this comic.
Played by the lovely Lake Bell in this movie, which no one would know, but I just adore her.
So I think that you're right. They totally nailed the villain, and they did the side villains well too. Catherine Hahn as the female take on Doc Ock.
She was great. She was great.
Also, I feel like I enjoyed a multi-villain scenario because
sometimes they stink. This one was good.
It's good to work in a few in case one was a bit of a stinker.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
and is there a female Doc Ock in another?
Maybe in one of the other universes. I don't know for sure.
It was nice to have a female. There's never a female villain.
I also really liked when Scorpion calls Spider-Ham Puerco. I thought that was really funny.
I know. I mean, the movie was also hilarious. So, up there with Deadpool. Funny.
All right, so let's wrap up, and we'll ask just I'll ask a couple of quick questions here before we wrap up. One is, Becky, who is your MVP of the Spider-Verse?
Miles, for sure. He's my MVP.
Awesome.
Lily?
Janky Hobo Peter Parker.
And I'm going to go 100% all in on Spider-Gwen. Like, give her own movie. She was amazing.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson can get her own movie. This girl can get her own.
We are sharing the love here around the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
That's great.
With the fact that we all don't have the same MVP speaks to them how good the movie is.
Yeah, that's true. Because those are the big three in a sense. But like, wow, that is like, people criticize superhero movies for not having great female characters. Like, clearly all they need to do is just like write a good one that is interesting and smart and challenging and raises the bar of the other characters, because that's what Spider-Gwen did. It's so,
also, this movie was probably the most diverse superhero movie I've ever seen. They had animals, they had just a bunch of different ethnicities, they had just like it was very different and unique to see every character. They had film noir characters. I thought it was awesome.
All right, so now if you were to pitch me a sequel, you don't need to know a lot about Spider-Man, what would you like to see these guys do?
I don't know. I guess I kind of want to see them maybe somehow they have to at one point meet up with the R1 and True Spider-Man. Oh, like the ours from our universe, I guess, that we're used to seeing, because I think could be cool, and I'm curious who would play him. Maybe like a back in time thing to save Chris Pine Spider-Man, or a way that they could, I don't know, that they have a time warp way that they can or universe warp that they can, like on Fringe, they can just go back and forth and help each other out.
Oh, so they have a little tunnel.
Like a tunnel or a bridge, and they can because at the end of the movie, Beck, I don't know if you noticed, when he's in his bed listening to his headphones, Gwen Stacy calls on him. She's like, "Hey, Peter, Miles, can you hear me?"
Yeah, you see the swirling of the universe.
And the swirl, and she's trying to talk to him, so she must need his help. Their specific adventure, as long as it's a good story, I don't care.
Well, I see what you're saying. They now that they've met, they can communicate between universes, and they find a portal.
Clearly, they have Spidey sense.
Yeah, so there's got to be a sequel with a portal with more. Yeah.
I'm just praying. I mean, my only pitch is that this was so great. I really hope that it doesn't get ruined. If they make another one, it's done well and taken seriously, and not everybody tries to copy this movie now.
I just max 3. I don't want 5 of these movies. I will sign on for 3.
But again, the joy and the pleasure from watching this film, I can't remember the last time I felt excited like I was a little kid again. It was incredible.
But I think, in essence, it comes down to the writing. As long as they keep with the good writing,
I have a question.
It's good.
Did you bring your kids to see it?
We didn't. We decided not to.
Because of timing, not
because of timing.
But I think it was good not to.
Will you take them to see it?
I would love to, but I think I also, just in the phase that they're in, some of the sound, I feel like is more overwhelming than the visuals. Now my kids can take a lot, and I think if I put my foot down and said, "Hey, we're gonna go do this. It's gonna be fun," that'd be great. But I think
put my foot down.
But I don't think they'll.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll.
Damn it! You will watch a Spider-Man movie. And you will not be afraid.
I know that I'm like in the buy, rent, or man. I am buying this automatically. So
it's a buy.
We'll be watching.
I think on the big screen, it could be a bit scary to a little kid.
But
all right.
So wait, last but not least, I gotta go with my Last Jedi comment that I want to say.
Yes.
And one of the things that I loved about this movie is that they introduced us to a character that was not genetically related to the main Spider-Man, yet found a way to honor that character and not just sever the relationship for those of us who connect to that character. They managed to fit it all together.
You're telling
in a
me
really
they
great
didn't make him into a horrible drunken.
I mean, they had Hobo Spider-Man, which was when you think about it, Hobo Luke Skywalker, but
very quickly he turns around and is helpful. He's not
But they also establish a relationship between them that was, I think, more meaningful than the one between Rey and Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, which I feel like is mostly him just
makes him realize he wants to have children. He changes his life fundamentally, as opposed to Ray is a nobody. That's basically the message of the movie.
Well, that's it. They left us with a lot with Miles, and I feel like The Last Jedi, unfortunately, Ray, who's probably was my favorite character to be introduced in a long time, they left her with not much with us to work with. Whereas Miles, I'm like, I want to know all about Miles' family and his life and what he's doing now, and then sorry, I got to end on this. Relationships, ships as the hip kids like Lons call them. Are you rooting for a Gwen Miles relationship, or should they just be friends?
It doesn't matter to me. I feel like they could be great crime fighting partners, friends, or young love, but it doesn't matter.
I want them to be friends. I want them to be good friends. I don't think there needs to be a love story. I feel like with Peter Parker
really
and
nice
MJ weaving through, and if Hobo Peter Parker comes back, but he's with Gwen, he's got kids.
It would be nice to not have
that leaves that love story there. But let the teenagers just be teenagers, and why does one of them have to fall in love? It's fine.
I would say exactly.
I think I want them to be friends.
I like the idea of them. I like the idea of showing best friends, a female and a male,
that are
and
good
not
buddies.
turning into a relationship.
Mostly the female. The female doesn't have to be in love and be rescued. So I guess she could rescue him, but still, I feel like they could leave that in
that implication.
The MJ Peter Parker.
Okay, so I think it's a buy around. Becky, where can people follow you?
Oh, at PaperBKPrincess on Twitter, but only tweet at me if it's about this movie. If it's not about this movie, I don't want to talk to you.
Lily, where can people follow you?
TGK Gomez on Twitter.
You can follow me at
I'm going to tweet about it right now, so if you're listening to this, go back to my tweets about 2-3 weeks ago, you'll see it.
All right, you can follow me at Pancake4Table on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow us at Pancake4Table.com, FridayNightMoviePod.com. The music from What Does It Eat will kick in, and we will dance.
Wait, and if you want to talk to us about this movie in person, come hang out with us at
because we're not going to
Comic-Con.
Because we don't want to talk about anything else.
June 7th, 8th, and 9th. Yes, we will. We're
going to have 2 lines. One is Spider-Man, the other was Trash Talk Last Jedi. We don't have anything else to say to you.
No. We will be talking about lots of things, but Spider-Verse is going to be a big one. Thank you so much for doing this instant review, guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Love you.
Love you.
I love you.